legislative council of a state comprises not more than one-third of the total number of members in the legislative assembly of the state and in no case less than 40 members. However, in Jammu and Kashmir, the strength is only 36. State Legislature, Article 168. 212 Chapter 3 of Part 6 of the Constitution is concerned with the state legislature. It comprises state legislature and executives. This topic is an important concept in polity for the IAS exam. Articles 168 to 212 in Part 6 of the Constitution deal with the organization, composition, duration, officers, procedures, privileges, powers and so on of the state legislature. Bicameral and unicameral states. Though a uniform pattern of government is prescribed for the states, it is not so in the matter of the composition of the legislature. While the legislature of every state shall consist of the governor and the state legislature, in some of the states, the legislature shall consist of two houses, namely, the Legislative Assembly and the Legislative Council, while in the rest, there shall be only one house, namely the Legislative Assembly. The Constitution provides for the abolition of the second chamber in a state where it exists as well as for the creation of such a chamber in a state where there is none at present. If a state legislature passes a resolution by an absolute majority, together with not less than two-thirds of the members actually present and voting in favor of the creation of the second chamber, and if Parliament gives concurrence to such a resolution, the concerned state can have two houses in the legislature. Similar is the procedure for the abolition of the upper houses, and the state of Punjab and West Bengal abolished the second chambers in 1969 and 1970 respectively. Legislative Council in Tamil Nadu was abolished in 1986. The state legislature which has only one house is known as the Legislative Assembly Vidhan Sabha, and in the state which has two houses, the upper house is known as the Legislative Council Vidhan Parishad and the lower house is known as the Legislative Assembly Vidhan Sabha. Owing to changes introduced since the inauguration of Constitution, in accordance with the procedure laid down in Art. 169, the states having two houses are Bihar, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana and Uttar Pradesh. State Legislature, Legislative Assembly. The Legislative Assembly is the popularly elected chamber and is the real center of power in a state. The maximum strength of an assembly must not exceed 500 or its minimum strength fall below 60. But some of the states have been allowed to have smaller legislative assemblies, e.g. Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Goa, etc. The territorial constituencies demarcation should be done as council as far as possible, such that the ratio between the population of each constituency and the number of seats allotted to it is the same all over the state. Apart from these general provisions, there are also special provisions with respect to the representation of SC and Saint. In case the governor feels that the Anglo-Indian community is not adequately represented, he can nominate one member of that community to the assembly. State Legislature, legislation has ceased to operate. Article 172(1). Unlike the Legislative Assembly, the Legislative Council is not subject to dissolution. It is a permanent body unless abolished by the Legislative Assembly and Parliament by the due procedure. But no person can be a permanent member of the Council as one-third of the members of the Council retire on the expiry of every second year. It amounts to a term of 6 years for each member. There is no bar on a member getting re-elected on the expiry of his term. A one-third of the total number of members of the Council would be elected by electorates consisting of members of local bodies like the municipalities and the district boards. One-twelfth of the members would be elected by electorates comprising of graduates of the standing of 3 years dwelling in that particular state. C. 1/12 of the members would be elected by electorates consisting of teachers who have been in the teaching profession for at least 3 years in educational institutes in that state, which are not lower than secondary schools in the standard. D. 1/3 would be elected by members of the Legislative Assembly from amongst people who are not Assembly members. The common not extending in any case beyond a period of 6 months after A. The rest would be nominated by the governor from persons having knowledge or practical experience in matters like science, literature, cooperative movement, art and social service. The courts can't question the propriety or bona fide of the governor's nomination. Qualifications of members of Legislative Assembly. A person shall not be qualified to be selected to occupy a seat in the legislature of a state unless he/she is an Indian citizen. B. Is 25 years or above for Legislative Assembly, and is 30 or above for Legislative Council, and C. Possess such other qualifications as may be prescribed by the Parliament. Position of the Council is provided for in the Constitution is not final. Year at a time. Thus, the Representation of the People Act, 1951, has provided that a person shall not be elected either to the Legislative Assembly or the Council unless he is himself an elector for any Legislative Assembly constituency in that state. On some grounds of disqualification, like conviction by a court, having been found guilty of electoral malpractice, being a manager or director of a corporation in which government possesses a financial interest. Article 192 says that if any question arises as to whether a member of a house of the legislature of a state has become subject to any of the disqualifications mentioned above, the matter will be referred to the governor of the state, who has to act in accordance with the opinion of the Election Commission. His decision is final and not liable to be questioned in court. Who are the officers of the state legislature? Facts about Speaker, Deputy Speaker. 1. A speaker vacates his office if he ceases to be a member of the assembly. 2. He may also resign his office at any time. 3. A speaker may be removed from office by a resolution of the assembly passed by a majority of all the then members of the assembly after 14 days' notice of the intention to move such a resolution. 4. Speaker does not vacate his office on the dissolution of the assembly. 5. He continues to be the speaker until immediately before the first sitting of the assembly after the dissolution. 6. While the office of the speaker is vacant, the deputy speaker performs his duties. 7. The duties and powers of the speaker are, broadly speaking, the same as those. The final power is given to the Parliament of the Union. But until the Parliament legislates on the subject, it shall be as provided for in the Constitution, which is described below. Duration of Legislative Assembly. Legislative Council. It will be a partly nominated and partly elected body, the election being an indirect one and in accordance with the principle of proportional representation by the single transferable vote. The members being drawn from various sources, the Council shall have a variegated composition. Broadly speaking, 5/6 of the total number of members of the Council shall be indirectly elected and 1/6 will be nominated by the duration of the Legislative Assembly is 5 years. The Governor has the power to dissolve the Assembly evading one Speaker of the House of the People Lok Sabha. Facts about Chairman, Deputy Chairman. Before the expiry of its term. The period of 5 years may, while a proclamation of emergency is in operation, be extended by the Parliament by law for a period not 1. The Council chooses from amongst its members a chairman and a deputy chairman. 2. Both vacate their offices if they cease to be members of the Council or resign from its membership. 3. They can also be removed by a resolution of the Council passed by a majority of all the then members of the Council, provided 14 days notice to move such resolution of removal has been given. 4. When the resolution for removal is under discussion against the chairman or the deputy chairman, the concerned person shall not preside at the sitting of the council, although he may be present at such a sitting and has the right to speak in, and otherwise to take part in the proceedings of the council. 5. He shall be entitled to vote only in the first instance on such resolution or on any other matter during such proceedings. 6. In case of inequality of votes, he does not exercise a casting vote to which he is otherwise entitled under Article 189. 7. The chairman presides at all sittings of the council and in his absence the deputy chairman. 8. During the absence of both the chairman and the deputy chairman, such other person as may be determined by the rules of procedure of the council shall preside. Or, if no such person is present, such other person as may be determined by the council shall act as chairman. 9. While the office of the chairman is vacant, the duties of his office are performed by the deputy chairman. If the office of the deputy chairman is also vacant, such member of the council as the governor may appoint shall perform all such duties connected with the office of the chairman. Powers functions of state legislature. The functions of the states as legislative council are only advisory in nature. If any bill is passed by the legislative assembly and sent, these subjects. IB Parliament can exercise the power to make laws for the whole or any part of the territory of India with respect to any of the matters enumerated in the state list, while a proclamation of emergency is in operation. The legislative competence of Parliament can also extend to the subjects enumerated in the state list during the operation of a proclamation of breakdown of the constitutional machinery. Legislative procedure. The parliamentary procedure followed in the Assembly and the Council is the same as in Parliament. 1. The state legislature must meet at least twice a year and the interval between any two sessions should not be more than 6 months. 2. The governor delivers the opening address at the beginning of a new session in which he outlines the policy of the state government. 3. Any bill may be introduced in either house of the legislature except a money bill, which can be introduced only in the assembly. It has to go through 3 readings, after which it goes to the governor for his assent. The governor may send it back for reconsideration, but once it is passed again by the legislature, he cannot withhold his assent. 4. He may reserve certain bills for the consideration of the President, who may ask him to place it before the legislature for reconsideration. When it is passed again with or without amendment, it goes to the President for his consideration. 5. The President is not bound to give his assent even though the bill has been considered and passed for a second time by the state legislature. In case the assembly is dissolved before a bill is passed, or it is passed by the assembly but is pending before the council, it will lapse. 6. But in case of bills which have been duly passed by the assembly, if there is only one house in the state, and by the assembly and the council where there are 2 houses, and is awaiting the assent of the governor or the president, it does not lapse. 7. A bill which has been returned either by the governor or the president for reconsideration can be considered and passed by the newly constituted assembly, even though the bill was originally passed by the dissolved house.